burrowing owl is sure to captivate you, not only with its big yellow eyes and intense stare, but with its many very weird habits that set them apart from most owls. For one, you won't find these birds in the forest as you would with other owls, but instead in the wide open expanse of flat treeless habitats of North, Central, and South America. In much of North America, the population is migratory. Birds in the southwestern states, though, are partial migrants, and in some places like Florida, the owls are resident birds, staying year-round. No matter the location, these birds will most often be seen on the ground, which is pretty odd to see an owl doing. That's just how these long-legged, short-tailed, unique raptors like to do things, being remarkably adapted to this way of life. So much so that although they have wings and can fly, they are considered less efficient flyers than most owls. With a mottled tawny coloration and a little larger than American robins, it can be quite a task when trying to spot them in these vast fields they like. What a sight though when you catch a glimpse of 2 or 3 of these flat-headed owls peering back at you. If you are wondering which is male and which is female, that is a tricky question to answer because both sexes are virtually identical. Looking for size differences isn't really helpful either, as weirdly enough for a bird of prey, there really isn't much size contrast between the two. Juveniles are easy enough to recognize from adults, since they lack burrowing in the plumage of their belly. Besides their spotty feathers, other distinct features of burrowing owls are the white unibrows, which give them a stern, adorable look. But perhaps the more striking attribute are those stilt-like legs of theirs. Other than the barn owl, most other owls don't have this feature. When you consider the fact that burrowing owls do pretty much everything on the ground, it makes sense for them to be so long, giving them the advantage to peer out over the territory in search of dangers, or more importantly, prey, much of which are hunted down or near the ground. Using techniques such as hovering close to the ground or hunting from a mound or low vegetation before pouncing, using its feet to catch insects in mid-air, and as you might have figured for an owl with long legs, running after their food. Yep, that is correct, they run, and pretty good, which is weird considering that most owls don't do that. I think it's one of the most adorable and funny things about these little misfits. Most of the items on their menu include large insects like grasshoppers or beetles, rodents like mice or voles, small reptiles, and amphibians. In fact, they will nab just about any life form they can manage. When they catch sight of prey or when disturbed, they will often bob their head. This head bobbing salute inspired cowboys to refer to them as the howdy birds. The eyes of all owls are large to allow them to see well in the dark. However, it comes at a price: the inability to move them around like what we can do. In order to judge distance accurately, they must move their entire head. Bobbing up and down gives them a clear view and precise location of prey. Although the majority of owls hunt at night, this peculiar guy is what's known as a crepuscular forager, meaning that they hunt both in daylight hours and at nighttime. Over the breeding season, the time is divided up between a pair, with males being the ones to search for prey mostly at night, focusing on small mammals and other vertebrates, whereas females catch smaller things like insects by day. There is a strange and off-putting thing they sometimes do that is thought to be a hunting strategy: lining burrows with dry shredded cow manure. The smell of dung seems to lure dung beetles, which burrowing owls love to eat. Nothing like having prey come to you. There is another thing though that manure may do: deterring predators by masking the scent of the owls. Whatever the case, it's quite odd. This leads me to probably the weirdest thing about them, which is not typical of owls: the fact that they nest in underground burrows, hence their name, burrowing owl. This preferred way of nesting has earned them the nickname Little Digger. Oddly enough, most burrowing owls don't actually do much digging, if any at all. Instead of doing the work themselves, they rely on burrows already dug out by other animals. Most commonly, ground squirrels, prairie dogs, or tortoises. Habitat loss makes it hard to find vacated underground tunnels, resulting in the little owls sometimes evicting the current occupants. Not all burrowing owls are lazy, though. Populations in Florida and the Caribbean are known to excavate burrows themselves. A peculiar but interesting behavior they sometimes engage in is picking up human litter to put around the outside of their burrows. Items like foil, bottle caps, plastic, and even bits of trash. It's thought that doing this lets other burrowing owls know that this place is already occupied, therefore hopefully eliminating any unnecessary fights. Although this way of nesting may seem a bit strange not only for an owl but just birds in general, raising their young underground has its benefits. When it's hot, and it can get pretty hot in deserts, the owls can easily become dehydrated, which can be life-threatening. These chambers beneath the ground provide some relief by helping to regulate temperatures. There is no end to the unique characteristics of burrowing owls, as another kind of weird thing about them is the fact that they hoard a lot of food away, mainly when prey is plentiful, which is stored down in the burrows to prepare for times when the hunt isn't as good, helping to ensure that they can feed their young. They can have quite a lot in their pantry too. One cached in Saskatchewan, Canada had more than 200 rodents. One thing about underground tunnels is the fact that CO2 levels are typically dangerously high. However, just like other burrowing animals, the little digger developed a higher resistance to carbon dioxide, allowing them to survive in stuffy air quality where the presence of oxygen is fairly minimal. CO2 isn't the only problem an underground dweller has to overcome, but predators too, like coyotes, large cats, badgers, and snakes lurking around. Remarkably, little owlets have a trick up their sleeve, imitating the hiss sound rattlesnakes make with their tail. They can do it so well that spectrograph comparisons have revealed it is very similar in frequency and acoustic structure. That is sure to stop any flesh-hungry animals in their tracks. Adult burrowing owls make a variety of calls, such as warbling, clucking, and screaming ones. But for the most part, they are pretty non-vocal. Over the mating season or when defending their territory, males make a cute two-note cooing that is described as quail-like. A lovable thing about them is that they are monogamous, sticking with one partner. Sometimes they even get a little lovey-dovey, preening one another. Both parents take much care of the young, and remarkably, they can have a lot of babies, which are able to walk upright around 2 weeks after hatching, and can be seen hanging out near the entrance of the burrows. Rarely do they stray far for several weeks. Once old enough, though, they venture out further with their parents. Burrowing owls certainly are weird. Those unique and fascinating ways of theirs come at a cost, though. As I mentioned earlier, most of the population relies on vacated burrows left by animals like prairie dogs. In some areas, prairie dogs and other burrowing animals like ground squirrels are being killed off to reduce numbers, which means not as many nesting sites are available. Then there is the use of pesticides to deal with insects which can kill these owls, and more importantly the loss of habitat, such as the conversion of shortgrass prairie habitats to crop production. All these things, plus some other challenges like collisions with cars due to their habit of foraging on the ground, sometimes close to the roads, have contributed to a decline in the population by over 4% per year between 1966 and 2019.